Welcome everyone once again to another segment of Burnt Coverage. This is the Week 8 edition of the running backs. I am Curtis.
Why are you talking so slow?
Nah, it's the Espadin.
I am Jim Bob Cooter. No, I'm Joel, your other host.
And running backs this week. Joel, you want to lead off here?
Absolutely. I am going to start with the most basic play. If you haven't made money off this man yet, shame on you. Cash in now because his price is skyrocketing as we speak. The best running back in the NFL, Todd Gurley, going against the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are giving up 113 yards a game and averaging 1 touchdown a game to opposing running backs, giving up the 6th most fantasy points. Todd Gurley has only started 3 games due to the injury that he suffered while at Georgia. His 3 games stat total is 146 yards rushing, 159 yards rushing, and 128 yards rushing. And these were not against terrible defenses. So you are missing out on the cash cow running back in St. Louis. He's still way underpriced at $6,300 on DraftKings and $8,100 on FanDuel. This is the last week that he'll not be in the AP Le'Veon Bell salary neighborhood. So it's 3 weeks in a row. We've both made money off of him the last 2 weeks. Cash in now because the price is going to skyrocket. This is the last value week. There's no way that this price stands.
Yeah, and in the past 3 weeks, someone on this couch has chosen them.
Go ahead, who?
One of us.
Yes.
At least one of us has chosen him.
Oh, every week?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were taking credit for finding Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
Because if you go back to the preseason shows...
So I was in Athens a few years ago, and I saw this young running back, Todd Gurley, and I thought, one day in fantasy football he's going to do something.
Hey kid, you're going to be somebody.
But yes, we both done well with Todd Gurley. I hope that you've been playing him. I actually saw a very high usage rate on him last week. So.
60%. You laughed at me when I said 80%, but it was actually over 60%.
It's certainly getting there. So, a couple fun facts on Gurley as well. He last week, so he got into his touchdowns, got 2 touchdowns, but he also had 4 receptions for 35 yards. If you've been watching any Rams games, I'm sorry, but they have no passing game, really still no weapons in the passing game that they've developed. So hell, if you can get the ball to your best player in the passing game, that's a good thing. So I like the encouragement there. Even that 4 for 35, that's 7.5 points in DraftKings in a PPR league.
And this guy is single-handedly keeping St. Louis in games now. And Jeff Fisher's not shy, as we've spoken about before, of just feeding his bell cow.
When they were down to Green Bay, they just kept giving him the ball
and fought right back into it.
Yeah,
clawed their way back into it.
Let's see. Averaging 144 yards in the last 3 games. I think it's good to note too. We have a lot of baggage we carry with us from previous seasons. I don't want you to think that the 49ers are a good defense anymore. You can just get that out of your head. They were completely destroyed by Marshawn Lynch, who I don't want you to think is a good running back anymore either. Marshawn Lynch had his best game of the season last week on the road in San Francisco against the 49ers. He had 122 yards and a touchdown. Looked like the Marshawn of old. As I said, his best game of the year. And now the 49ers are going to St. Louis, which is hard for anybody to play, any team, as St. Louis puts up a fight at home. So I don't see any way. Kaepernick's completely ostracized from his team now. The team is in complete turmoil. So I could see this game getting out of hand early with Gurley.
Nice.
Like how I did that?
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of sad that you got to talk about it more.
Almost like we rehearsed this.
Let's see. Good. Gurley. I've got
Gurley.
Yeah. I've got an oldie but a goodie for you next. Somebody who every year in standard leagues I've found a way to roster. I've paid too much for him most of the time, and recently he's failed me. And then the year I decide not to get him, he is second in the league in rushing, and that's Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson is playing Cleveland this week. Yes, the same Cleveland Browns that just gave up a buttload of rushing yards to Todd Gurley. I'm not saying that Chris Johnson is Todd Gurley. I know Chris Johnson is second in the league in rushing. He's still not Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley is actually 12th in the league in rushing. He's only played three games. So this is week 8, or coming into week 8. So there's that. But Chris Johnson's been very productive. And it helps that he has such a productive passing game with a lot of weapons. So they can't crowd the box on him. Carson Palmer has been playing out of his mind. All of the receivers are in the act now. We had Fitzgerald earlier killing it. John Brown stepped up in recent weeks, and now we have Michael Floyd getting touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. That was another pick of mine from last week, just throwing that in there. Chris Johnson is actually leading the league. This is a fun stat. Leading the league in yards after his first hit. Which is something that Chris Johnson never did before. He was one of those guys that was super fast, but if you
breathed on him,
you breathed on him, he would fall down. But now, for some reason, he is busting big runs after contact. If you saw the Monday night game, his touchdown run, not the one where he rolled over the guy and got a 65 yards.
Yeah,
he wasn't down. I watched it. He wasn't down. Not that play, but the play he got his touchdown on. He was hit, stayed up, hit again, stayed up, spun off, and ran for the touchdown. He's just playing out of this world. I don't know if he's got a chip on his shoulder or what, but he has a 620-plus yard carry so far. I think a lot of people were afraid of the other running backs that were in the picture. Andre Ellington, the big one. But Andre Ellington has been healthy now for 2 weeks and has been regulated to solely spelling or just passing game, which is fine for the Cardinals. It's not good if you drafted Ellington in your standard leagues.
They also phased out of the offense at this point, essentially.
Yeah. And I think it's since we're in a passing league now, that they'll find roles for Ellington. But it's just he's not going to take away a lot of carries from Chris Johnson at this point, especially how well he's been doing. But 4,600 in DraftKings and 7,300 in FanDuel. He's coming in at a price that a lot of players who are just mid-range or even backups are still coming in at, which is it's kind of crazy. I just don't think anybody really still has faith in him. Cleveland's giving up 151 rushing yards a game. So, and you're going to face the second leading rusher in the league. So this has Chris Johnson big day written all over it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. This is another one of our picks that we agreed on in our pre-show meeting. But I think Chris Johnson had completely disappeared from the fantasy spotlight for 2 years and completely fallen off the map. But he's definitely been rejuvenated in this Cardinals offense. But I think he's just a beneficiary of such a potent aerial attack that yes, I think he does have that little chip on his shoulder. But it's just that Carson Palmer is playing at such a high level, and they spread the ball around so much to those receivers that as long as Chris Johnson keeps his feet moving, which is what he did on that 65-yard run, and he continually does that every week. He's a very strong play. He's not top tier price wise, so yeah, he's great value.
Yeah, if he snuck into like the AP price range, like if he has a big week this week, and then he's like 7,000, and they're playing like God forbid like the Seahawks or something, which of course they're in the same division, then I wouldn't be as high on him. But against the worst defense against the run, and he's second in the league in rushing.
Everybody runs on Cleveland.
Yeah, so feel free to trot him out there.
So my next pick is, so I have a season-long bromance with Todd Gurley. My only other serious bromance going with a running back is none other than Ronnie Hillman. I've been calling for Ronnie Hillman to start for the Denver Broncos since week 2 of the preseason, and he is now the official starter. He's going up against Green Bay this week. They're coming out of their bye week. Ronnie Hillman has had 200-yard games out of the last 3, and that's when he was only second on the depth chart. Now he's going to be the lead back at home against a Green Bay defense that's giving up 4.7 yards a carry and 100 yards and a touchdown in the battle of the unbeatens is what I'm calling for here. Vegas set the over-under at 45.5. I really think that Green Bay can be run on based on their yards per carry, and I think they're going to want to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field as much as possible. And for the price of $4,600 on DraftKings, $6,100 on FanDuel, he's dirt cheap. Yes, there's a little bit of risk involved because you don't know how he's going to operate with the new lead back duties, but I have a lot of confidence in his ability. He's been doing it all year. He's just now being given the opportunity to actually fulfill all those promises that I've been making to you.
Yeah, I see what you're doing here.
What's that?
I see
What am I
exactly what's
doing?
going on.
What am I doing?
So who are the two running backs you picked this week?
Ronnie Hillman and Todd Gurley.
And are you in a standard league at all?
I'm in a couple standard leagues.
And are you playing anyone in one of your standard leagues that's sitting on a couch with you currently?
I don't know. I have such a good record in one standard league that I don't even pay attention to my opponents anymore. Why? Who am I paying?
And let's just say you were playing me, for example, in a standard league, and you happen to be starting two running backs. Who would those running backs be?
It's fun. So yes, I might happen to have Todd Gurley and Ronnie Hillman, but you know what that shows you? That showed you that I believe in my abilities. That's all that is. And honestly, that just shows the great depth that I have in my standard league because I've lost Jamal Charles and Arian Foster
you needed
in
that
back-to-back weeks. So
I feel like you cursed yourself. You said like, oh, I'm so good at my depth and running back.
I'm 6-1. That's why you have depth to account for injury.
Yeah, we'll see.
And now you guys are going to be the recipient because follow my lead. Your running back guru.
I will say that I like Hillman this week, especially really for his price, and that C.J. Anderson has completely dropped the ball.
Yes, because as you'll see,
Actually, literally dropped the ball.
literally. But because with this value play, that's enabling, at least for my lineups this week, I'm going to stack high for wide receivers. So this is how you can make that happen and manipulate your lineup that way.
And if you're still watching or will be watching our wide receivers, you'll see that Joel does have a few high-end wide receivers he likes, so he is definitely doing that.
It's called a teaser right there.
There you go. And as far as Hillman, he had 20 carries last week to C.J. Anderson's 13. Or sorry, the last time they played, they are coming off the bye, so I feel like they have integrated Hillman more into the offense. And if you're afraid of playing Hillman because you think that it'll be a shootout for some reason, I don't think so because Denver's defense is so good. Maybe if it were in Green Bay, but it's in Denver. I wouldn't worry about that either because Hillman is the main back when Peyton's in shotgun or they're passing downs. So it looks like Hillman's just going to get
He's going to be a
plays.
3-down back. Yeah, I don't think he's going to get 25 carries, but 18 to 20, I think is going to be his floor this week.
I think 80% of the snaps is not out of question.
Absolutely.
Especially if they're down. In fact, if they're down, it might actually help him. He might get a few catches. So in DraftKings PPR, it might help you out there too.
What do you have?
Well, I'd be remiss if once a week I didn't take a swing on my poor hapless Bucks and just try to put one player out there that might do well. And
Jameis Winston.
No, it's not
Charles Sims.
No, it's not Charles Sims.
Austin Safarian. What's his name?
Yeah. It's none of those guys. Thank you, Joel.
They're not terrible Bucks players.
It's actually the player that is also top 5 in rushing, third, and that is Doug Martin. The Duggernaut, as he'd like to be referred to now, not Muscle Hamster. I'm still partial to Muscle Hamster. Duggernaut's clever, but it's like Durantula. It just really come off your tongue. He's had 300-yard games in a row. And that's pretty good for an offense that you would think is always coming from behind. He's run very strong. He looks like the Doug Martin of old. I don't know if that's improved line play. I don't know if it's improved quarterback play. Some people would argue it's not. But we are seeing Doug Martin consistently get into the secondary. He's had a good number of large gains this year. And currently he's actually averaging 4 receptions for 35 yards. It's kind of eerie. He's getting like 4 and 35 every week. So if we can put that down, he might get a few more receptions, especially if the Bucks are down. But I certainly don't think that the 100-yard mark is out of the question. Atlanta's run defense has been decent this year. However, they haven't played a lot of teams with good running backs. If you'll look at their schedule, you'll see the Titans stick out quite a bit. They held the three-headed beast of I would say the Saints probably had the best run attack against them because they did a few different players, but really they're not that great against the run. You'll see if they're actually a 31st against running backs in scoring. They're good with yards, but they've given up 10 touchdowns to running backs so far this year, which is a league high. And Doug Martin's really one of their few consistent weapons. Mike Evans was coming back from an injury, trying to find his place. They had Vincent Jackson. He's out this week. Lewis Murphy, their unheralded third receiver, is also out. He's actually going on IR. So it really is Doug Martin as a workhorse this week for them. And I see him being in on a lot of snaps, getting a lot of play. And here we go again. Guy, top 5 in rushing. He's 5,500 in DraftKings, 7,500 in FanDuel. So a lot of bang for your buck. For the Bucks' sake, please, Doug Martin, keep it up.
So they're giving up 31st in yards and 10 touchdowns. That's the...
Oh, I'm sorry. They're giving they're 31st against the running back. So they're almost the worst against running backs because they're giving
low
up
yardage, high touchdowns.
Exactly.
So that's the old adage of break, don't bend.
Yeah.
It's that amazing defense.
Yeah, they're finding ways to get scored against, but they're not giving up a lot of yards. But the running backs that they've played against haven't been spectacular.
No, I think Doug Martin has definitely shown life of Doug Martin of 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I think that I don't think it has anything to do with the quarterback. I think it's more of a confidence level. I think Doug Martin is one of those few NFL players with a fragile ego, where he needs that confidence to believe in himself and to go out and do it on a weekly basis. And he had that amazing season, then he had a terrible season, and he started off good this year because there was no pressure on him, and he's just building on that. So yeah, no, I like the play. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say no pressure because they brought in Charles Sims and everybody was like, "Oh, Charles
but
Sims, they're getting drafted
it wasn't the
around the
pressure
same place."
to be you're the guy. We're going to depend on you. We're going to put the team on your shoulders and you carry us.
Well, it was pressure to keep your job.
Yeah. Well, that's a different type of pressure. I'm saying the pressure of having to lead the team to wins.
Okay.
As opposed to the pressure of staying in the league.
Gotcha. Yeah. I've been in. Even as a Bucks fan, I've been surprised at how well he's run, how strong he's run, and that's what I really look for. Like speed's great, but I really want to look for guys that get hit. Crack's even better, but
it's Rangers.
Thank you. Speed's great, but I love guys that can really take a beating and keep on ticking. What is that? I don't know. Chris Ivory would be somebody, but yeah, these guys.
Chris Ivory is nobody.
These guys that can run right up the middle and still find their way. Doug Martin does not run outside the numbers. He goes for it right up the middle and gets his yards that way. So yeah, hopefully.
What are his prices again?
5,500 in DraftKings and 7,500 in FanDuel. So he's still more than Chris Johnson. He's almost 1,000 more than Chris Johnson, which Chris Johnson's price shocks me in DraftKings, but he's about the same in FanDuel. So some Chris Johnson, Doug Martin tickets. Ronnie Hillman's also a good play, I think, too. And of course, Gurley is so hard to get away from.
You've got to play Gurley. You have to. He hasn't had less than 128 yards in a game he started this year.
And I'll throw out the old fantasy conundrum. Anytime Arian Foster gets hurt, we have to look at Alfred Blue. Alfred Blue is playing a Tennessee defense who's very good against the pass. Actually, one of the best teams in the league against the pass, and that's no fluke. At least so far this year.
And that's no fluke.
And that's no Blue. So does that mean that Alfred Blue is going to have
I don't think so. I was very high on the Alfred Blue train when Arian was hurt earlier in the year. But I'm actually, if I am desperate enough to look in the Houston backfield, I'm going to go Chris Polk because I think, well, Chris Polk has out-touched Alfred Blue the last 2 weeks, and that's with a healthy Arian Foster. But no, I think Chris Polk has more of a higher ceiling than Alfred Blue at this point. I think we know what Alfred Blue is. I think I think Bill O'Brien knows what Alfred Blue is, and that's not anything anyone wants. Chris Polk, in limited duty in Philadelphia and in Houston, has done amazing things. He just has never gotten enough carries and enough consistent work to really string together some really strong games. But I think that maybe not this week, but 2 weeks down the road. But the thing is, they've got a brutal schedule against running backs coming up. So we'll see. But if I'm going to put money on, it's going to be Chris Polk.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys in that price range. Chris Johnson's one of them, surprisingly, in the Alfred Blue. I think people just think that Alfred Blue is going to just automatically replace Foster's production, which is not going to happen
At all.
And there's plenty of better plays. All the receiving backs, the Danny Woodhead, Shane Vereens are all around that price, especially in DraftKings. That would be good.
Yeah, I would take a Gio Bernard over Alfred Blue.
Yeah. So I wouldn't, even against Tennessee. You think Tennessee bad defense, but they've been competitive. Hopefully, look at Mariota back and be even more. So. And Brian Hoyer's not going to light the world on fire, except in complete garbage time. So, actually, I did well on a ticket with Brian Hoyer last week. I was just like, that was the worst ticket I ever played at halftime. I'm like, oh, pretty damn good ticket. 3 touchdowns, 300 yards. Sweet. So, all right.
You're welcome.
Yeah. That was another segment of Bird Coverage. Look at that.
Just flew by.
Yeah, I am Curtis.
And I'm Joel.
And we will see you next time.
On the couch.
Bye.